I I hope for the optimism. I hope it's late 4 years from now as we slowly roll out with the vaccines and the protocol slowly goes in. I As the protocols get lesser and lesser stricter over the coming months and days. So speaking about the economy, one thing that really fascinates me about the Philippines is that we have been focusing on the flaws on the healthcare system, with the educational system, and also with the quarantine protocols, etc., etc. But there's one thing we have been overlooking with with the pandemic, which is the food and agricultural sector, because I am really sure that there is a huge lack in specifically the development and also the mitigation on how to deliver the foods towards the cities, etc., etc. So, do you think that do you think that there should some as you defined a while ago that there should be a failure? Do you think that we are already failing in our agricultural and food sector, that we can have a more sustainable and developing food and agricultural sector where it can feed and where it can feed and supply the needs of the population?
I would say that we have already been failing for years because of the various issues that arose from the agricultural sector. But those were the times when it was at its worst. With, if I remember, we imported rice, which is our main agricultural thing, no? But nowadays, I haven't really seen news of the agriculture sector being as bad. So I would say that we're done with those failures, massive as that. But as of right now, we're still not exactly in the best state. And I would honestly say that out of all of the sectors right now, once the COVID situation is solved, the agriculture sector should be more promoted more and should be invested in more because of the massive potential it has for our country.
Yeah, and then the bad thing about if you work on the agricultural and food sector of the Philippines, there's this stigma, if you agree or disagree with me, that if you're a farmer or if you're a person who helps in the produce sector of the Philippines, that you're quote unquote poor, if you agree with me, because there's like the stigma na ah yung magsasaka ay mahirap, mangingisda ay mahirap. So, do you think in the as we recover slowly and slowly, do you think that the stigma would lift away and then lift away and then surprisingly, what I have read in the previous days, in the previous months regarding about agriculture is a really good business, a good business model. And then for a fact, even the third wealthiest man, which is Bill Gates, he's even he's even investing a huge potential, investing so much of the farmlands in the in United States. So where was I? So do you think that the stigma would lift up as more and more innovators and the bright minds of our country and also from the other countries, specifically Bill Gates, that the stigma of the farmers, the fisher folks are poor?
I would say that slowly but surely the stigma would lift. However, if you're asking for a quick solution, that would not come right after the innovations, mainly because for years and years now, the Philippines has always had this stigma of farmers are poor, don't be a farmer, be a doctor or whatever instead. Yan na. And I would say that that stigma helped propagate the downfall of the agriculture sector of the Philippines, which is a sad thing because the Philippines as a country, as if I remember, I said earlier, relies so much on agriculture. In fact, the same people who would insult agriculture depends on agriculture for their supply of food. They're saying that while eating their dinner, and they're the ones who work hard in order to raise those crops and give them to you. And I would say that it's kind of dumb. For me personally, the stigma is very it's a very uneducated point of view on farmers as a whole, because you don't see the beauty of their struggle in order to feed the country. And it's disingenuous to those who want to work in the agriculture sector, because they would be disencouraged from working there. They won't be encouraged to work there because if you're working there, because the stigma of if you're working there, then you're poor. And I would say that's a waste of brilliant minds in the Philippines, dude, if that stigma does not disappear. But going back to your question, it would take a long time for that stigma to disappear unless our country makes a very, very active role in removing that stigma by promoting a lot of agriculture. Because when it comes to agriculture, it's not only dirt that's involved. There's also poultry, there's also fisheries, and there's also many other sectors of agriculture that have yet to be developed because of that stigma that's stayed in the Philippines.
A farmer feeds the rich or the poor.
Mm,
A really good statement on what you said. No matter how rich you are, no matter how poor you are, you're still being fed by a farmer.
mm.